everybody. I'm Alex. I'm here joined with my colleague, Animesh. Animesh represents the Windows servicing team, and their mission is to help keep Windows secure. And they do so by regularly releasing patches and updates to the Windows platform so that everyone who uses Windows can make sure that they are doing so or staying up to date with the latest and greatest in terms of security. So, Animesh, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Alex. Thank you. So I'm Animesh Jain from Windows Servicing. Within Windows Servicing, I represent the EXP team, which is Experiences and Platforms. And the charter for our team is to make the Windows Servicing engineers more productive by writing tools and services and platforms that they can build their specific scenarios on.
Very cool. Can you briefly talk about how does AI come into play in this particular area of
Right.
Windows?
Right. So, I mean, AI gels very well with our charter, right? We want to make our SWEs and developers and PMs more productive and more efficient. So AI is was a natural fit for us. So when ChatGPT was released and we came back after the holidays, so our leadership was like, this is a great fit for your team. You need to do something with AI for the whole org. So that's how this whole thing started.
Our VP of AI and design, John Maeda,
Yeah.
likes to talk about, yeah, this post-vacation moment where a lot of people, especially after ChatGPT got launched,
Hmm.
right? A lot of people are trying to figure out, oh, wow, what do I do with this? How do I
Yeah.
incorporate it into our products?
Yeah.
And probably a lot of people are scrambling. A lot of managers and PMs and engineers are trying to figure out, okay, how do we put this on our roadmap? Could you
Yeah.
walk us through that sort of like journey
Yep.
of like how did you all react to the ChatGPT moment? And then what sort of initial things did you start piecing together?
So we started at the beginning of last quarter, which is March end. We started to delve into AI and how it can help us do our jobs. So we did some initial POCs. Initial POCs were regular, like we went to the Azure OpenAI, opened the playground up, and started seeing what it can do. Watched a few tutorials, YouTube videos, did a few courses, and then we were doing some POCs on prompt engineering. So we can do this with prompt engineering. So that's good. And then we found out then we needed a way to store memory, so store information, our documentation and other things. So we found Azure Cognitive Search. We did some POCs for it. We put some data there. We were like, okay, it's giving us, we can search the relevant parts of our document. And then we did our prompt engineering POC, and we're like, okay, we can take these relevant parts, put it into our prompt, create a system prompt for whatever we want the AI to do, and then have it answer questions for us. So that was the POCs. That were the POCs that we did. At that point, when we were beginning, we weren't looking into frameworks or any open source things like LangChain and other things. So that was the initial POC. So from there, we decided, okay, now we can build something at least because we have a POC. If we take this part of our documentation and someone asks a question about what is the status of this update that we are sending, it'll find the update from the documentation if it's there. We also thought like we would need to somehow go to external data sources, for example, your work items, your ICM boards, and other things, and find more information from there. And then there are APIs within the org, right? We want to call them to see how the build is going for Windows. Is there an issue with the build? Where has the release reached and all those things. So we added those pieces. So we kept adding pieces like as we thought of the scenarios that we want to build. And then we were like, oh, so this looks like multiple services that we have to create. So so the next thing we said was, okay, since we are the platforms team, let's create a platform where we can write all these services very fast, right? And we can produce these tools that make everyone effective. So we came up with an architecture on our own without knowing any frameworks. Let me share that with you. So we've scribbled on top of it, but if you ignore the scribbled parts, that was our architecture. We'd have Azure Cognitive Services. We'll have some indices that we will keep. We'll consume text data, structured data, or unstructured data for logs and time series and other things. We'll have a retrieval layer, which will just be Azure Functions or web service or anything that will call those Azure Cognitive Services for different teams if they want to do some post processing on the memories that we get. We'll add some plugins, right? and then we will augment our prompt. And again, we wanted to give teams and different tools the ability to customize those prompts and do other things. And then at the end, we would do generation based on what model you want. So that was our initial thing. So that was around end of May when we had the whole scenarios down, and then we started working on, okay, we'll need this. And then build happened first or second week of May, and we found out about semantic kernel. So we looked into semantic kernel for a week, and then that's where the scribbling began. So we like, okay, semantic kernel offers this out of the box. There's plugins out of the box. There's customizations out of the box. You can do generation out of the box. So we're like, okay, cross everything out. Then semantic kernel SDK, if we use it, it gives us connectors, skills, and planners. And that's most of the architecture we were writing in the first place. So we decided to use semantic kernel and build our platform on semantic kernel. Yeah, so that's how we decided to use semantic kernel. The additional advantage was it was internal, so we had like first party support, internal channels, and we also looked at the GitHub repository, which was pretty active in responding to issues, suggesting ideas, and helping out. Yeah, so that seemed like a good fit, and we decided to run with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is very, very interesting to see, at least, at least for the viewers. Hopefully they can imagine the pre-scribbled on drawing of this, where actually if you take this and you compare it side by side to what was announced at Build with this Copilot stack,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Honestly, it looks very similar, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
overall structure of it and how Microsoft at least presented it during Build, like this pattern, I would imagine, right? It's not just a Microsoft thing, honestly.
Mhm.
It's a pretty common pattern that we're seeing across enterprises, across teams. We're trying to build something with AI and infuse it or incorporate it in their products. So,
Yeah, I wish I had the pre-scribbled one saved at a different location so we could do a before and after that.
but that's good. So it sounds like, yeah, you heard about discovered semantic kernel during build. Semantic kernel, for those who don't know or are not familiar, right? Within the Copilot stack, it sits under the AI orchestration layer, particularly. And yes, it does interface with the vector storage pieces or memory stores that, let's say, Azure Cognitive Search represents, as well as the overall like prompt
Mhm.
templating, prompt
Right.
engineering piece. So I guess in your experience, in your first impression of semantic kernel, could you at least share what's the benefit of using an SDK compared
Mhm.
to this build it yourself approach, which I think a lot of teams are still wrestling
Yeah.
with. Like, why
Yep.
should I use this versus doing it all myself? I'm just making an API call anyway to OpenAI.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the presentation that we saw on semantic kernel initially, I think you had one of those presentations in one of your videos as well. Um, they talked about taking the paved path and not just being in the wild west of just calling APIs. So there were a couple of points there that appealed to us. So one was the underlying technology might change, the models might change. A recent example is like Chat deprecated their completion APIs or chat APIs, right? So that is an example. So underlying architecture will change, the models will keep changing, but our code will be static. It's based on our knowledge at that point of time. So we can abstract those things out, and semantic kernel takes care of it. A second point for semantic kernel was one of the points there was also like if you're just calling open AI APIs, you're not thinking big enough. There's a lot more you can do with AI than rather than just create a prompt and call open AI APIs. And you have to do multiple calls if you have to do prompt chaining. So yeah, so in my experience, I think it's always better to use a framework, any framework. We just found semantic kernel to be very good for us. But yeah, so I mean, my recommendation would be to use a framework. You can do POCs by just calling the APIs and you prove your concept. But when you go to a production level tool or service that you have to create, having a framework will certainly help.
I liken it to the experience of you can write, let's say, raw JavaScript, or you can use a framework like React. You
Mhm. Right.
can
Yep.
write your own uh, deep learning module using raw like NumPy,
Mhm.
or you can use something like PyTorch.
Right. Yeah.
And all this just shows like people who develop these frameworks, yes, they take an opinionated point of view, which yeah, the semantic kernel is a point of view on how to best develop things. It's informed by all the work that we've seen and that we've partnered with internal product teams and external third parties to to help abstract and to show some sensible patterns and like paved path. But yeah, it's your choice which pieces you want to incorporate. The library itself is pretty lightweight. You can
Mhm.
choose which parts you want to use or not. But yeah, like if you don't want to have to struggle with, oh, how do I do this? How do you do that? Do I have to implement all these things myself? Then having something like an SDK semantic kernel could at least hopefully help you
Yep.
achieve your boss's demands, right? That
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I need to get AI out the door, shipped to my to the product ASAP.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll help you move beyond the POC phase, basically. So that was something. So since this was supposed to be the underlying framework on top of which we write all our tools and services, we wanted it to be pretty solid to begin with.
Can we talk very high level about the challenge of security and how does like Windows as a whole secure its platform? What are the sort of considerations that, as an engineer or even someone who uses Windows, I see
Mhm.
these like, regular update Windows prompts, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, what now? Or what happened that is prompting me to update? I guess can you
Yeah.
at least talk high level what
Yeah.
goes into that?
Yeah. So from a Windows servicing point of view, I guess like there are better people who can answer this, but I can take a shot. So there's the patch, we call it Patch Tuesday updates, which is the second Tuesday of every month. So we ship out all the security updates for Windows every month without fail, each month. Um, so those are like we get the security issues from a lot of places. Um, um, people report those issues, and we have to fix them as soon as possible. So efficiency and productivity in our work is very important. We can't, like, there are cases where we miss deadlines, and that's not good for corporates or our enterprise users. Yeah, so for our team, like that was the reason our team was formed, to make sure that we are as productive and effective and efficient as we can be, and maybe improve on our efficiency as we go forward. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's good. That's good. I think it's the name of the game for all teams, right? To be more
Mhm.
productive with
Mhm.
AI.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, as we wrap up this session, I guess what would be one thing you're looking forward to either using or playing around with, getting more familiar with from the AI side, maybe with semantic kernel, but what would you like to see worked on
Yeah.
from you or your team?
Yeah. So on just the AI side, we are starting to look into fine tuning our models. For there are certain cases where just the APIs won't do, or the SDK that we have. So we want to look into fine tuning some models, and maybe working on that. As far as semantic kernel is concerned, so we are currently, I think we are one version behind the latest one. So you have 0.18 that was released. We're at 0.16, I think. So a couple of versions behind. So stepwise planner, we've looked into it. That seems very promising for certain things that we want to do. So that's one thing we're looking forward to, and we're looking forward to fall release in general. The end-to-end telemetry, that is big, right? Our team is very much into data and telemetry to figure out what's going on, and like you have to measure the efficiency and productivity in order to improve it. So that's something that excites us for the fall release.
Yeah, I mean, we are marching towards that fall release. The
Yeah.
ideal is that it becomes actually a 1.0 release that actually is more stable and
Mhm.
more mature, is backwards compatible, all those
Yeah.
words that are very friendly to the enterprise ear,
Yeah.
right?
Initially, when I started using semantic kernel and looking, like I pulled the GitHub repository down. Every day I would come and do a Git pull, and there would be like hundreds of changes. And how do I keep up with all this? So we decided,
That's
like,
right.
okay, let's stick with 0.16 for now. And when we have something working, when we are ready to productionize our things, we'll move to the more recent version. Yeah, but you guys released new more and more features that made us move forward early.
Yeah, I mean, there's more good stuff. Even
Yeah.
between 0.16 to 0.18, there's a lot
Mhm.
of new things that have come in.
Yeah. Yeah. We were really excited about the vector search that came in 0.17, and then again, of course, the stepwise planner.
Well, cool.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
Animesh, I'm excited to continue working with you and the team to help push your products and your scenarios forward. And would certainly love you to give us feedback on how we can make the semantic kernel better. And same to all the listeners as well, right? If you're trying to meet your boss's deadline or trying to get something up and running from POC to an actual production ready application, definitely check out semantic
Yep.
kernel. And yeah, let us know what you built.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you guys are doing on semantic kernel. And you guys are very responsive with the issues and everything, and even suggest ideas of how we can make our product better. So thanks. Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you again, Animesh, and have a good rest of the week.
Yep. You too.